this is the 1911 Otis elevator. Mary Packer Cummings gave money. She had two specific requests. One, she'd be the first to ride in it. The second, it'd be large enough to accommodate a casket and 6 pallbearers. She got her first wish the day of her funeral, her first ride, and 6 pallbearers. If you listen to Haunted Carbon County, they allege the elevator is haunted. For the only spirits I've ever encountered is after one too many beers at Molly McGuire's pub. The 1869 main sanctuary. Most of the articles and artifacts date between 1869 and 1912, when Mary Packer Cummings had the majority of her family's fortune. So I'll show you our baptistry. This is the 1887 baptistry. It's given in memory of Fanny Packer Skier. She was a relative to the Packer family.
Who was that? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Fanny Packer Skier.
Fanny Packer. Yeah.
She was a relative to the Packer family. As you can see, this is our Victorian Baroque style angel of baptism. Her base is butternut wood. She's a counterlever. She easily ascends into the heavens. So if you're here for the 9:30 a.m. service, you may see a baptism.
Wow.
On my left and on my right are the last gas-powered fixtures here in the church. The gas is actually located in the priest's sacristy. We light them for special occasions as well as baptisms. You'll see the 4 angels of baptism, oil on canvas painting. It was painted by the very famous Victorian artisan. His name was F.A. Lamb. And it's unique because it is gold leaf on gold flake, surrounded by morning glories. And of course, morning glories are preeminent in Victorian art because they symbolize new life and how appropriate for a baptistry. You'll of course see our next window, which is the Louis Comfort Tiffany original window. It's called Breath of My Love. It's based on the oil painting located in the mansion between the master bedroom and dressing area. Mary Packer Cummings actually took that particular painting to New York City in 1905. Louis Comfort Tiffany reproduced it in stained glass. You'll of course notice that the flesh tones are very natural. The Christ child himself, his arms are outstretched in cruciform style. Louis Comfort Tiffany was never known to paint his flesh tones. Instead, he had something called the melding technique. Now, unfortunately, if we knew how he did it, we'd all be millionaires, but he did take that secret to his grave. Wow. You'll see the way the pastel colors just naturally all flow into each other in this particular window. It does maintain the theme that we see in the mansion with the rosés at the top. In this window, we see it as a memorial to Lucy Packer Linderman. She's the only Packer to give the family grandchildren. She had 4 children of her own. Sadly, 2 sons, Asa and Harry, would die in infancy. As we follow along, you'll get to see the 1896 window. Whoa. This is the Butler window. It's called Abide in Us. It's given in memory of a millionaire couple who attended church here. Their names were Alexander and Anna Butler. You'll see the face of Christ imprinted in the tablecloth. For Louis Comfort Tiffany was known for using a technique called the imprintation technique, where he would basically imprint images into his stained glass. How he did it, once again, that was a well-known secret, and he took it to his grave.
Whoa.
White sandstone. Yep, white sandstone rear doss. It's given in memory of Asa Packer. Allegedly, when Asa Packer died, he was one of the wealthiest men in all of the United States. His wife contacted Queen Victoria, asked if we could replicate such rear doss located at St. George's Chapel of Windsor Castle. For the Queen was both flattered and honored, sent her own personal architects, artisans, and assistants. It took about 2 years to complete. We believe that the bigger pieces were probably done on site, smaller in the studio.
All right.
Oh, so this is a mitten tile floor. It's original. It dates back to 1869. It's very similar to the tile floor that we have in the Historical County Courthouse.
Nice.
Historical County Courthouse.
Yeah.
Coal and navigation.
Whoa.
So Asa Packer has all the original furnishings. So if you look at, for example, the Lemp Mansion in Missouri or the Winchester Mystery House, their furnishings are all replicates. Why are our furnishings original? It's because of the fact that, according to legend, there was an overzealous caretaker who, when Mary Packer Cummings died, He would go into the house, he tarped the furniture, kept the heat at a decent level. So when it was opened in the 1950s as a tourist attraction, all of the furniture remained pristine.
It's amazing.
And then, of course, we see the Harry Packer Mansion. Started its life as Ace's Railroad offices. Then it was given to Harry and his wife Gussie as a wedding gift. I'll take you to the third courthouse here.
Okay.
We'll walk along. So as you will see, this, of course, is the third courthouse. The first courthouse was actually built out of an old company store on land donated by Lehigh Coal and Navigation Company. In 1840, Carbon County was incorporated as a county from Monroe County to the north, Northampton County to the south. Now, our first courthouse only lasted until 1849. It was an all wooden structure, and it burned down in a fire. We had a massive fire sweep through town in 1849. The second courthouse was constructed to look like the Great Halls of Justice. It had a temple. So now if you look where my fingers are, do you guys see the columns and the arches there on top of the...
Above the clock.
Yep, above the clock. So that's what they claimed the facade for the second courthouse looked like. It was a temple of justice. The second courthouse was completed in 1850, and then it was torn down in the late 1880s for two reasons. One was population was growing, so we actually outgrew that building. The second, of course, was the bad mojo of the Molly Maguire trials. The third courthouse was constructed by J.C. Jacoby, done in the English Revival style. Our bell tower is based on Big Ben in London. The music we hear every hour on the hour emanates from the bell tower. We're the only courthouse in all of Pennsylvania with Tiffany windows.
Go ahead. So we're talking about the courthouse.
Yes, so the Historical County Courthouse is built in 1893. They actually tore down the second courthouse for two reasons. One was the fact that population was increasing and we outgrew it. The second was the bad mojo of the Molly Maguire trials. However, if you watch the Molly Maguire movie, the third courthouse, courtroom number 1, that's where we filmed the Molly Maguire trials. Now, there is some controversy in the hard cold docket because of the fact that the Molly Maguire trials, they actually did take place in the second courthouse and not the third.
And the judge has written a book, you said?
Yes, so the book was written by Judge John P. Lavelle, and it was published around the 1980s. What they said is with the Molly Maguire trials was that they basically had German men from Lehighton sit in the jury. The Molly Maguires were not tried by a jury of their peers.
Right. Did they speak English? Because I've read that
They did not. So
Okay.
what they said, they were specifically looking for German men who did not speak English. The Molly Maguires, there was not one Irishman on that entire panel.
So no real peers.
Right, there was no real peers, and Carbon County still bore the stigma of the Molly Maguires all the way up until about the 1960s. We didn't vote for John F. Kennedy in the 1960
Wow.
presidential election. Majority of our votes went for Nixon.
Wow, I didn't know that. Thank you.
So this is the third county courthouse. The first county courthouse was actually constructed out of a building donated by Lehigh Coal and Navigation Company. It was an old county store. That lasted up until about 1849 when we had a massive fire come through town, burned everything to the ground. The second courthouse was completed to look like the Halls of Justice. And that was interesting because the whole facade really did look like a temple. They called it the Temple to Justice.
Wow.
Some of the beams that actually were used in the facade of the second courthouse can be seen around town. Next door at the Mock Chunk Bank, which is now the Thorpe National Bank, as well as the YMCA building, which is up the street. The second courthouse sadly only lasted until about the 1880s when we tore it down. There were two reasons they said. One was the bad mojo of the Molly Maguire trials. The second was population was growing, and of course we needed to make more room. This third courthouse was constructed and designed by J.S. Jacoby. He was an English architect who had studied in London. That's why our bell tower, of course, reminds us of Big Ben in London. The music you hear every hour on the hour emanates from the courthouse. Also, this is, of course, where many of our major verdicts were read back in the 1980s when we tried a serial killer by the name of Mudman. His verdict was read here.
Wow.
He was a biker. He murdered his girlfriend, and her remains were found up in an area called Jetto. So, of course, there was a high-profile case, lots of media involved. Media would be stationed across the street, and this is where the verdict was read. Also, we have another high-profile case coming up. It was a cold case in the 1970s. A guy murdered his girlfriend up in New York. He dumped her remains in Whitehaven.
Oh.
It was a cold case up until they used DNA evidence. So our current DA, he's currently working on getting that gentleman prosecuted.
Nice.
Also with the Mullen McGuires, they say that this particular area changed because in the 1960s, we of course did not vote for Kennedy, we voted for Nixon.
Right.